Yeah. Let me
Okay.
let me
Hi.
try it. There we go.
Lovely. I see you. I see you just fine. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
I did invite Linda, but unfortunately she's away filming. But she did want me to pass on uh, um her good thoughts and say hello to you.
Oh, that's nice. No, that's nice. Thank you.
And she says she always enjoys working. She always enjoyed working with you.
Yes, yeah, we had some great fun.
Okay, I think we'll make a start. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this watch along of the Avengers episode with my special guest Paul Weston. For those that want to watch the episode as we chat, just want to pause on the opening title card, The Avengers in Color. I'll give you a few seconds to do that, then I'll do a countdown from 5, and then we'll press play and we'll begin. Okay, so let's just get my copy ready.
I just have the Avengers. I don't have the in color at the bottom.
Oh, I think that's probably I think that's probably
Mm.
about right. That's fine. Everyone will be a couple of seconds out anyway, so it's not a
Mm.
major problem. Of course, you've got to skip through the Studio Canal bits to get to that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
okay, right. Okay, so okay,
No,
so
no
so
sound on it.
yeah, yeah. So I've turned my sound off on it, and because the Avengers has quite a high copyright level, even for a show
All
that's
right.
60 years. So it's one of those strange ones, really.
Mm.
Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and play. Uh, so the first thing I wanted to ask you, Paul, so we're seeing the lovely sequence with Steve knocking down the knights and Linda running across a very familiar bridge to Avengers
Yes.
fans. I take it you have memories of doing some work on there over the years.
Yeah, and on that bridge we used many times with Diana as well as Linda.
Mhm. And because this, of course, is the second title sequence for the series. The original ones was just sort of more of like what they had with Diana, an indoor studio-based setup. Were you involved in the filming of those original titles?
I was out there when they were doing that, but I did it on the Diana ones. It was myself and and her um, uh, stand-in who held the glasses and poured the champagne. It was our hands and our feet on the table, my feet. So yeah, I was involved in that,
Mm.
but not with these titles.
Yeah. Hmm. And we open, of course, on and when I asked Sid about this, about the running across the bridge, she didn't know, she couldn't remember whether it was Linda running or herself. So because they, of course, they were so closely matched,
Mm.
it's difficult even for her to tell.
Mm. No, it
Um,
was Linda. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so we are. The opens on a back lot of Elstree. Was it a nice lot to work on? Did it have a nice back
No,
lot?
it was. I think we've used it for a couple of sets. It looked, yes, it's just a little corner of the set that was that part was, and it looked very dank and wet, but it was all shiny uh, uh, covers on it. So
Yeah, I think eagle-eyed viewers will notice that it was used in this bit. I think was used in a couple of the Linda episodes.
yes,
Um, and of course, this I think what made these shows financially viable to make at the time was that studios back then had extensive backlots, so you could.
mm,
But now I think because they're all gone, sold off for housing, or whatever, it would make doing shows like this quite perhaps impossible because of the
mm,
costs involved.
yes, it's better. Obviously, the locations that we can use, but in those days it was it was only second unit went out. No, the stars didn't go out very occasionally. So we did, most of the driving and running around with doubles.
Did you have a sort of a strict radius from the studio that you had to kind of stick to when it came to the locations?
Well, the production didn't want to go too far. You know, if you could use the back lot, you use the back lot. But if it was a country road, you had to go out there, you know, Barnes, and we used Shenley and different places, High Cannons area.
Mhm. I think it's a nice opening of the episode with the villain in the boxing ring, and the quirkiness of the trademark of the show is established quite nicely here. It's a nice sort of lead into to the mystery of it all. We're looking at a love now. It's just Linda's attempt to infiltrate the secure area. Do you remember working with Linda? Any highlights of working with Linda?
Oh yeah, I loved working with Linda. She was so enthusiastic. This is I think Ken Barker being thrown around as a soldier. You, you see that he gets knocked down, and then it looks like Rocky there being thrown over the shoulder as a soldier. And then they would use the actor for the close-ups. He goes out, and I think it was Joe Dunn comes flying back in as his double.
Yeah.
And then they would cut back to the actor being, hooked up.
So quite a complex, elaborate, for what seemed like relatively simple. It's a number of people on the scene. What was Ken Barker like? Was he?
He was a lovely guy, a great photographer. He used to do our stunt ball photos, and any photos you need doing, he would do. He was an excellent photographer and a good actor. I used him on Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, playing a part. He was. You could always rely on Ken to give you a good performance.
Yeah, I think the reason why you see so many stunt people, something like Rocky Taylor, pop up in so many things is that you have a core people where you have this good relationship and you trust, and you want to keep bringing them back because you have that shorthand, I imagine, develops after a while.
Yes, yeah. Oh yeah, we had a good little team, and you see us over and over again playing, doubling people or playing little parts.
Sorry, Paul.
No, I was just saying, having that little core of your team, you could always rely on somebody. If they're on another set, you could call them in and say, "Look, quick, get into this costume and fall down these stairs."
Yeah. We're looking now at Alan McNaughton as Gilpin, who's the kind of head of the section here. Do you remember working with Alan at all? Would you have had much to do with him?
No, not a great deal. I've worked with him on other series as well. So he was always a good face, a guy to have around. He was a good actor. So yeah, I've worked with most of them over. It could have been the Saint, the Baron, Jason King, Randall Hopkirk, any of those. They all had little parts in them.
Yeah. So how did working on the Avengers compared to things like the Saint and Randall Hopkirk?
Well, Randall Hopkirk was always a cheap show. We used to come when I was working on Randall Hopkirk. Used to go over to the Avengers props and borrow some, things like carpets. We didn't have carpets on, so if you had a fight on Randall Hopkirk, you couldn't fall on the floor because they couldn't film the floor. It was all Hessian. So if you needed something a bit special, you'd go and get a rug to put down.
So you did quite a bit on Randall Hopkirk, it sounds like.
Yes, yeah, I doubled both Mike and Kenneth.
Oh, lovely. Because I've done a couple of events with Annette Andre for various things, including Randall Hopkirk. So maybe I'll get you together in the future. That might be nice.
In the back, I don't know if he's still on it, but it's Terry York and Peter Brace are the two MPs, Red Caps.
Yeah.
There wasn't much of a fight, but they got them in to make sure she was, if she had to do a bit more struggling or whatever, those guys would be, the stunt guys would look after her.
And again, good guys.
Yeah. I mean, Peter Brace and Terry York was, they were the mainstay of the early TV series.
So of course, this series of the Avengers had a bit of a bumpy start with John Bryce being the producer, Albert and Brian being very unceremoniously let go. What was your memories of that at the time? Are you aware of that kind of the politics happening?
It comes down on the crew find out these things, and you get the vibes from the producers. We knew it was not a comfortable start. John Bryce, I think, wanted her blonde, so she had her hair dyed blonde, and it did that. It died and fell out, so she had to wear a wig for the first couple of episodes. And then they put in the fact that she could change wigs and play different characters. But it's because her hair was so bad to begin with.
And of course, those first episodes were reworked into different Homicide and Old Lace, for example, but basically kind of a clip show sort of thing. But a lot of the episodes, of course, were those scenes lost through time. I unfortunately.
Yeah.
Did you get the sense that those first few episodes before in their original form, they didn't quite have the magic that?
No, I think they had to work on them to make them work. I don't think, but she was very. I mean, she'd just come out of drama school, and it was getting the writers to write for her rather than just like they were for Diana. So no, I think they settled in, and I think she did very well considering that she just started.
So in some ways, perhaps that little sort of almost false start allowed her to get into the character. They could try a few things, and maybe then that perhaps was for the best. Perhaps.
Yes, I think she needed that time really. And I think she coped very well for a young girl as she was then to come into that, a full-blown TV series that was, had so much kudos that, it was a lot to take on.
Well, very big shoes to fill with Diana Rigg, and so she must have been very, if she wasn't nervous, then she wasn't taking it seriously. So quite a bit of pressure, yeah. We're seeing an actor on screen now, William Marlowe as Fairfax. Did you encounter Mr. Marlowe?
Yes, again on many TV series. I probably even doubled him at one time. Yes, again, good, actor, always reliable. You could put him in any sort of character, and he was very good, and a nice guy. He was very good.
I think fans of cult series will remember him from The Persuaders. He did an episode opposite Peter Bowles, Emperor Wrist, I think it was called. And this, strangely enough, for somebody that was such a good sort of character actor, this is only Avengers appearance.
Is it really?
Yeah, because so many, of course, came in after almost weekly. It seemed. Did you meet John Bryce?
No, he was there. I mean, I never met him personally.
Yeah,
he was aware of. I've seen him, on the set and in discussions, but never sort of spoke to him.
Yeah. Because I think on paper he was a good choice to do it in the absence of Brian and Albert, because he had done some of the Honor Blackman series, so he was. But of course, the show was incredibly different by the time he came back. We're sort of having a look at some exteriors in London and some of the streets. I assume it was a lot easier to control the traffic back then, simply because there wasn't so many
Yeah.
So it wasn't too much bad of a logistical sort of experience.
No, you could block off, and people did, wait for you. You say it's a film, say, oh, what is it? And they're interested. They were interested in it in those days, so they would take time out to allow you to shoot a scene, and then they would drive on. But yeah, obviously they picked the streets that were more susceptible to being blocked off for a while. And Steve's Muse and her place were pretty good.
And I think you were in another chat we had. You were saying that blocking off streets, say in central London these days, some people just pay no attention whatsoever, and they'll get quite shirty about you trying to, almost they think that you're blocking their rights of way. So was this a simpler time that people were more respectful, I suppose, of film crews?
Yeah. Danger Man, I remember, they'd block off streets, and you just drive around, and you come back again and say, oh, go again, so it wasn't a problem. But it does, these days, it's ridiculous traffic.
Oh yeah. And I suppose because of the logistics, it's more expensive to shoot on location as well, I suppose.
But you do it. You've got the budget. You can do it. I've shot on Fast and Furious up the Mall.
Oh, yeah.
And around London, St Paul's with the Flash. It was right outside St Paul's, and also on the Men in Black. It's just, you've got the big budgets. You can block off streets, and you pay the right people. You can do it, but you need the money to do it.
Oh yeah. And even back here, of course, you're still shooting early on a Sunday morning and stuff. You mentioned the Flash. Have you seen the final film?
Yes, I saw it on a plane, I think.
Yeah. Because I think the St Paul scenes originally had Michael Keaton. Were you there when Michael did his?
Yeah, I was doubling Michael Keaton. I drove that futuristic Mercedes into position for Michael Keaton, and when I saw the film, George Clooney steps out and says of Michael, so I doubled both of them.
Oh yeah. Were they both nice guys, Ben and Michael?
I didn't meet Clooney, but I did meet obviously.
Mike Keaton.
Yeah. He was fine. He was lovely, and he doesn't normally speak to people. They said, but he had we had a word, talked about his movies. He was saying that the Japanese film he did, you wouldn't get away with today, but Birdland and things like that. But I was on the set. First time I walked onto the set, the stunt coordinator and all the stunt guys came around and said hello or whatever. And they want their photograph because I've been around so long. They want their photograph done with me. And then this guy came up in a suit, and he put his arm. He said, "Oh, you did Superman 1, 2, and 3?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you mind having a photograph?" I said, "No." He put his arm around me, and then the other guys came around and took some photos. And I said to him, "And what do you do on the movie?" And he said, "I'm the Flash." It was Ezra Miller, and I didn't know. I just walked on the set, and he was in the suit. He'd have been in his outfit. I would have known, but I just didn't know him as the actor.
Yeah, I think he's a terrific a Flash. Did you say you doubled for George Clooney at one point?
No, only for the fact that it was he stepped out of the car that I was just driven in.
Yeah. So it's kind of, so the scene with Michael Keaton is basically the same as George, but just with Michael versus. It was kind of the same sort of thing. Yeah. So I wanted to ask, of course, you were saying about driving all the cars and everything, and because of course you were doubling Patrick McNee, you were driving you had a lot of vintage cars in the show. Were they fun to drive, or were they sometimes impractical?
Yeah, I mean, they're impractical around London, but if you get out on a on a hill in the countryside, you can, get up some speed. But it's doubling the clutch, and it's trying to do handbrake turns and things like that become a little more difficult. But yeah, we some beautiful Bentleys and the old Rolls Royce. Um, oh, there's Peter. That's why they got on there is Peter Brace just getting Linda.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's quite a little violent little shot, and you sort of pushes her in the face, sort of backwards.
Yeah.
It's quite effective. I must probably mention the wonderful set design by Robert Jones. He did about 50, I think 51 episodes he did in the end. I think it's what again makes the Avengers so timeless and sort of classic is the look of the show.
Yeah, and it was one of the shows they did spend money on the props, and it's and it's all in the set designs, and it was quirky, and you get away with it. It's that sort of bizarre show, and it's you have to be hooked into it. I think the Americans eventually really got into it. But when we first started on, I remember getting a letter. The crew got a letter saying the Mothers of America, their points they wanted to make that you couldn't do on screen, otherwise you wouldn't get a rating. You couldn't shoot anybody in the same shot. You couldn't have somebody in the shot and then fire a gun, and then so you always had to fire off screen and somebody would die. We never showed any blood, and in that episode where the tiger, the cats are tigers, shredded people's clothes completely, but not a drop of blood. And the other thing was you couldn't show nipples or navel, and Steve should always have his coat buttoned up. So they were the things that the Mothers League of America, I think it was called.
You wouldn't necessarily think about the navel, would you? But so that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
And I think what the main difference I can sort of ascertain between the American censors and the UK ones is the UK ones didn't mind too much the nudity that you would see in, say, the Carry On films, but the Americans did, and we were less so with the violence, and America was more acceptable of that. So, making a show that had to work well both sides of the Atlantic must have been sometimes a bit of a headache, possibly.
I'm sure it would have been for writers as well as the producers and directors.
And we just saw a lovely sort of I suppose crypt or sort of lovely stone set that Mother is in. So when you sometimes went on the Avengers, were you kind of very impressed with the sets and the attention to detail that they put in?
Yes, yeah. I mean, you can still see their sets, but I mean, at that time I was impressed because I was only not been long in the business to see you go through a door and there's nothing there the other side, or you go out and you're in a corridor and you open all the doors in the hotel, there's nothing on the other side. So it was always interesting to me. But this was a fight with Linda. She gets pushed around.
And so that's you doubling Patrick there.
Yes.
Going Brian
just a stomach throw.
Brian Marshall over your shoulder. But Brian Marshall, of course, appeared in Spy Who Loved Me as one of the submarine commanders. So did you get to know Brian a little bit because of those shared productions? Again,
I've worked with him on several shows, and on the Bond film, we was all in, on the set for a long time, getting blown up and shot and being the goodies and baddies. So yeah, he was
Another
a good
person,
again a good actor,
yeah.
and a mainstay of those TV series.
Yeah, another actor that's sadly no longer with us,
Yeah.
but a very familiar face. Um, I think it's probably worth noting that the wonderful productions design, until people got DVDs and big screen TVs, you wouldn't kind of, I think it would have been a little bit lost on the original audience, because of course TVs were much smaller, and of course some people probably still watching it in black and white, I'd imagine, over here.
I remember Sid Hares was directing, and he used to direct Second Unit as well. And we was out on location once, and he was shooting on the side of my face as I was going through these bushes, and he was just filming us. And I said, "Isn't that a bit close, Sid? You know, I'm a double." And he said, "The TVs are so small they won't even notice." But no, he would be eating his words if he was alive today. He was a lovely guy, Sid Hares. He was an editor, and then started was directing, did a lot of English stuff, and then Ray Austin got him a job in America, and he did all the American series.
Right. So was Sidney Hayes a very efficient director? Was he an actor's director? How would you sort of describe
Who Sid?
Sid, yeah. Sid Hayes, yeah.
No, he was an editor, really. He knew exactly. He would shoot in his head. He would edit it in his head. I remember saying to him one time, there was a couple of actors, and the actor had to turn and say something, and the actor said his line, and as he's turning to say another line, Sid said, "Cut, that's it." The guy said, "But I haven't said my words," and Sid said, "Don't worry about it. I'll be on the other shot." He knew exactly, frame by frame, where he was going to edit. And he said to me, which was a very profound thing, he said, "Don't give them anything you don't want them to show." So he was editing. He wouldn't give them a whole long scene and let somebody else edit the way they want it. He would give them exactly what they had to put together to make the scene he wants. So it was a good lesson to learn from him.
That's a very clever approach, because the directors didn't get to do what they would do on a film. We didn't go into the editing suite afterwards. They delivered the episode, and then it went through lots of people, and then it was a very different animal in many cases to what they did. So that was a very good approach.
Yeah.
We're seeing Patrick Newell as Mother and Rhonda Parker as Rhonda. Do you remember either Patrick or Rhonda?
Yes, yeah. Obviously, we're on the set with him quite a bit. The lovely guy, Patrick, and Wanda was one. You know, Wanda was. Yeah, she was. They're both lovely and lovely to work with. Very easy. I don't think anyone was a pain on the Avengers anytime. I remember, you know, from Diana days to the latest. But no, they were all very amenable. And all, you know, if you were standing in for somebody, I remember standing in for an actor, a lovely guy, and at the end of the show, he gave me half a crown. I was standing in the early days, and he gave me half a crown. He said, "Thank you for looking after me." Yeah,
that's very sweet, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the character of Rhonda is always quite mysterious, because we don't really kind of know her relationship to Mother. She never really speaks in the show. But what was Rhonda Parker, quite an extrovert? Was she a nice person?
No, she got on with it. She was, you know, I mean, she was brought in because of her height and her character, and I think she did very well. And not saying anything was obviously must have been frustrating for her as an actress, but she got the part and stuck to it.
Yeah, I think it's a very nice part, and keeping the mystery there, I think, is what is one of the
Mm,
appeals of a character. I hope she's still with us.
mm.
But like a lot of people, sometimes they just sort of disappear and go out of the business and living a quiet life somewhere. As we are mentioning directors, this episode is directed by Don Chappie.
Mhm.
What was Don like?
He was lovely, outrageous. He he told it as it was. He wouldn't hold back in any way. He was a very experienced director, so there wasn't much you could sort of pull over his eyes or anything and say, "Oh." I remember doing Persuaders in Malta, and we wanted Alf Joint and myself. I was going to be knocked down by a truck, and we wanted a camera inside the truck and to come at me, and I jumped on a mini trampoline and bounced up and hit the windscreen. Um, and with a lot of directors, you can't say, "Yeah, this is what I want." You have to. It's psychology, really. So Alf and I stood next to him or close to Don and saying, so I said to Alf, "I don't think it'll work. A camera in there." And he turned to Don. He said, "What do you think, Don? If we put a camera inside the truck and then Paul hit the trampoline and hit the windscreen, would that work?" And he said, "I'll make it work for you, boys. Don't worry."
Yeah.
So, you have to be psychologists to sometimes get the shots that you want, because the director sometimes says one thing in his mind and you can't change it. And it may not be the best way to shoot a guy coming over a table or down some stairs, but you try to convince them, the best way that you think that it would be filmed.
Hmm. I was just having a look at Don Shapey's bio, and he's not listed as doing a Persuaders. Did you could it be the
No,
Protectors?
Protectors.
Oh, Protectors, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
And of course, that was Robert Vaughan. You later worked with
Mm.
Robert on Superman 3, didn't you? So,
Yes, yeah.
was there much difference from Robert back in the 70s to the early 80s? Was he kind of all
No, not
the
really.
same?
He was so laid back. I mean, he'd done so much. So when I worked with him on the Persuaders, I remember he was sitting there underneath a balcony in a house in Malta, and Alf Joint can do a 30-foot fall down into one layer, well, a layer and a bit of boxes, only small boxes. Um, and he was just sitting there reading the paper, and they said, "Turn over, action," and they're filming at the Alf's fall, and I could see him sitting in the background, and Alf went, "Oh, bang," hit the boxes, and Robert didn't even look up. He was like, just, he was a bit relaxed.
Well, I suppose you've been so used to stunts on The Man from U.N.C.L.E. that you would have kind of seen every
Yeah,
possible sort of
yeah,
scenario. Um,
yeah.
quite a good time to mention some of the guest stars. Alan Browning is the main heavy Zoloff.
Mm.
Does any memories when you see Alan here?
No, no. I think he was. I mean, We did the fight, and he was very good. But I didn't get to know him, personally. It was just you on the set and you chat and you go through the fight and you explain what he's got to do, and he did it very well. Alf Joint doubled for him. Fred Haggerty doubled for the main villain. Yeah, it was just a fun fight
Oh, yeah.
in the ring that we're going to see. But they all, the actors just did as they were told, and you can. Sometimes actors want to do more than is necessary, and sometimes they do too much. I remember on Jason King, Peter Wingard had to get this actor who comes up behind him in a Turkish sort of tent, and there's cushions all on the floor, and this guy's got to come around, put his arm around Peter's neck. Peter's got to grab the arm, take it up, grab him under the shoulder, and throw him over his head. this is a simple thing. So I was doubling for Peter. I had my wig on, and I had my hair because my hair was quite long then. And I said to the actor who was going to do it, "Can you do this?" He said, "Yes, fine." And I just lifted him over, laid him into the cushions. I said, "Now we've got this shot on a wide shot. All you need to do is put your arm around Peter's neck. Here, grab your arm, take it up, and just move forward. And that's we've got the shot because we got it in a wide shot." He said, "Yeah, okay." And just then, 26 beauty queens came on the set. They'd won a competition, and they were all lined up. And so now the young actor wants to show off a bit, and Peter's sort of smiling at them and waving. So turn over an action. The guy put his arm around Peter's neck. Peter grabbed his arm, and then lifted him, and the guy threw himself over Peter's head into the cushions, which was fine. But the problem was he took Peter's wig with it. So Peter's wig went flying across the room, and his hair was going thin at that time, and he had elastic bands around in little clumps to hold the hair, so to clip into. And he just looked up, and all the women just went, and he went, "Oh." And they took the girls out. But yeah, it was quite funny. So actors sometimes get over enthusiastic.
Yeah. I did meet Peter Wyngarde at an event in London. He was a very nice, unassuming, sort of down to earth person.
Yeah, he was a good actor, and he would have made a good director. I got on very well with Peter. He was a very nice guy, but a good actor. This is Joe Dunn doubling for Marshall.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We did love going over chairs and tables. That's all you could do on the set, really. But you use as many props as you can or on the set, to make it a bit more spectacular.
Because of course Joe Dunn had the fighter ranger position on the show, so he was basically a stunt coordinator.
Yes, yeah. They asked me to do it when Ray left. They asked me to be the coordinator, but I really wasn't experienced enough, and I turned it down. I said, "No, I work with Joe if you want Joe, but I can't. I had too much respect for the industry, so I just didn't have the experience." So I said no, but I worked with Joe on the next series.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So if the Avengers had gone on for another series, would you have fancied having that fighter ranger?
Oh yeah. I look back on it, and I could have got away with it. I could have done it. I had enough experience, but I did turn it down. I'm glad I did, because it gave me a few, another year or so before I started coordinating.
Yeah. You said about some actors want to do sometimes too much. I think Sid was telling me that Linda really liked to do as much as she could, and sometimes I think Sid had to sort of pull her back a little bit. What was Patrick Macnee's sort of stance on it? Was he kind of more knew what he could do and what you guys were sort of taking?
He couldn't really throw a very good punch. He used to had his wrists like that instead of like that. It was, so it was sometimes a little difficult to to sell a punch. But he would fall back, but that was me getting up the rolls there. But he knew exactly what he didn't want to do. So he was, he didn't. He had nothing to prove. It was like Roger never needed to do any more than do a good stand-up fight, and Roger was very good at that. Patrick wasn't. It was a little wooden.
I think the boys suited his character as Steve as well, being a sort of English gentleman, and I think he kind of probably incorporated that into his character.
Yes, yeah. He didn't have to do it. He was umbrella and the metal bowler hat, and that was it.
I always wondered why, because in the titles for Diana Rigg episodes, he has the sword that comes out of his umbrella, but it never appears in the
No.
series. And I assume it just wanted to sort of keep the violence level down, and that might have
Yes,
encouraged a bit
I
more sort
think
of.
so. Even in that episode where he does have a sword fight in the Wapping, where all the it goes back to it's a club. The
Oh, Hellfire.
no, it was
No.
the episode was about Jack the Ripper era.
Oh
They
yes, in that.
all had beards and
Yeah,
cloaks
this is
and
this is
things.
this series. Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and he had yeah. I don't know. I don't think he actually took the sword out of an umbrella there.
no, no. I think you only ever saw that happen in the movie. And I
Mm,
think he used it. It's called the episode was called with Jack the Ripper. That was the episode.
mm.
Um, so I was just wondering what the secret was to doubling somebody. So, is of course you need to be of a reasonably similar build, but in terms of making a good double, is it kind of be generally aware of the camera angles, movements? How do you kind of sort of sell it?
Mainly trying to encapsulate their style, the way they move, um, what they do. Rocky, when he was doubling, he was always his hat never seemed to fit, and he always was pulling it back down again, and having a fight and pulling it back down. And so, yeah, it's just trying to get that character because we're all actors. If I'm doubling somebody, I'm acting their part. So you try to get into that style of movement,
Yeah,
and you watch your actor to see the way he moves, the way he swings the umbrella, um, any little thing that will help um, make believe that you are Steve when you're out on location, doubling in a car or getting out of the car, going up steps or wherever.
mm. And of course it was just economical, wasn't it? Just for you guys to do that, that would free up the principals. They could do other things, or they wouldn't. Obviously
The
you know,
schedule was so
the
tight
schedule.
that
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that, you would have 10 days shoot and 2 days, maybe 2 days second unit
Mm.
if it was necessary.
Yeah, yeah. You should mention that Zatara is now in the villain's clutches. Ralph Michael is playing the general, almost sort of like a mirror image of Steed, sort of the impeccably dressed, good taste,
Yes,
etc.
yeah.
Again, was Ralph nice to work with? Fairly,
Yes, again, you meet on the set and uh, you discuss what you have to do really and how you do it, and you just try to keep them safe. As I say, they want to get involved, but you can't get them let them get too involved. So yeah, it depends on the actor, but he was a very nice gentleman, really, and you would say he was a gentleman.
yeah.
He acted it, and he was just you just thought, yes,
Mm.
he's an English gentleman.
Did you get the sense that Patrick was as happy on this series as he was with Diana? Because of course it's a major shift. Was he?
Yeah, no, I
No.
think he was happier with Diana because he could rely on her. She came up with any one-liners that they wanted, to alter slightly. And yeah, he depended on her quite a bit in the early days. So now when Linda came along, he had to take on more responsibility of being in charge of the two of them, really.
It is a more protective relationship,
Yes,
whereas
yeah, yeah. He had, I mean, he was more the father figure um, with Linda than with Diana. She was really in control.
yeah,
She was very funny and very witty
mm,
and very pleasant.
yeah, yeah. So it seems like the Steve Tara relationship mirrored the Patrick and Linda
Mm,
relationship, sort of.
mm.
Uh, I must mention the wonderful performance by Amy Delamain as Gladys Culpepper, the, the lady who
Oh,
deciphers
yeah,
what's going on here.
yes. Oh, yeah. She was lovely. Yeah, I mean, she'd been in so many British movies,
Hmm.
but she was just lovely old lady. Really nice.
I don't think she was as old as she looked because she
No, probably
yeah,
not. I mean, but she played it very well. You felt protected, you know.
yeah.
You wanted to help her up from the seat and things like that, but she played it very well.
Well, I think she was 93 when she died, and that was
Really.
in the 1990s.
Oh,
Um,
right.
but I think sometimes people looked older back then
Yeah.
than do now. I think that's whether it's to do with lifestyles or
Mm,
diet, or I'm not sure what it would be. Certainly, body types are very are very different.
mm,
If you look at Roger Moore's Bond and then say Daniel Craig in terms of the
yeah.
physical difference.
Mm,
Uh, Speaking of Roger Moore, he did at time to time visit the set because, of course, he was just
yes, we
on the
had some
soundstage
great fun
opposite.
with him.
Yeah.
Diana used to write little things at the bottom of the call sheets to put on his call sheet, and he did the same with ours. So it was very funny. This fight, what I'll do is I'll talk you through it when it's me and when it's Patrick,
Oh,
um,
okay.
and you'll see editing just how quick cuts each of the movements are.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that sounds
and
perfect.
have a look at the gong at the end. That gong was used on the Maltese Falcon set.
Oh, right.
And Big Bill Reed had to get kicked and go put his head on it, and so it goes gong like Alf did. Only he went straight through it, destroyed it, had to repair it. But you have a look at the gong.
Yeah. Uh, there is a very nice behind the scenes photo, which is on the DVDs of Roger visiting on the Mother set.
Mm.
I think also similar on All Done with Mirrors. I think he pops out in the
Oh yeah,
lighthouse.
that was funny.
Well,
Yeah.
um,
So you'll see now when Patrick comes to start with. So
yeah,
Linda couldn't do much get involved with this because she's tied up. But this little bit, that's Fred Haggerty. Um, then that's me and Fred Haggerty. That's Alf and myself. That's Patrick. That's me and Fred Haggerty. That's me and Alf Joint. That's the three doubles there. It's for a bit of fun. You can see it's Fred there. Then they cut to Patrick. Cut back to me. And you can see it's me there. It's terrible. Then it's Patrick. That's me. Into back to Patrick. Back to me. So each little scene is each movement has got a edit in it. Here's a gong. That's what was supposed to happen with Bill Reed, but he smashed it, went straight through it. Have a look at it on the Maltese Falcon
yes.
one.
So in terms of sort of doing the sequence, because there's lots of gymnastics, things that obviously the principals wouldn't have had any hope of sort of doing. Would you have done it first and then got Patrick and Patrick to do his and the actors do their bits? How would you kind of shape that sequence?
The doubles will go in and work out what we're going to do, and then we would do a master. In those days, you did a master, and then you would do the actor with a stuntman, and then you do the other actor with a stuntman. So you'd always have a stuntman fighting with an actor. You would have two actors fighting. So we would do the master shot wide enough to see, so you don't see the doubles, or slightly higher, so you can hide their faces slightly. But we would do rehearsal, and then we would film the actors would be watching, and then we would film the master, and then we would then go into close-ups on the artist and see where they could fit in. And you get, Patrick doing one thing, going head first into the thing, and Fred Haggerty would show his actor what he's got to do, and Alf would show the other guy, and I would show Patrick, and then we'd cut it all together. It's all cuts, so it's what you can get away with doubles. Is so you try to get a little higher, or you get so low that it's just what is. So yeah, it's tricks of the trade, really, using the camera to hide doubles, and put the actor in the best light as possible.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is the end tag scenes for the series is always very, very well done. I think this one with the champagne fountain.
Yes,
I think we all want to go home and try that at some point.
Yeah.
But of course you would have been involved in some of those tags because they were often involved in the cars and things. So they were quite a nice, because I think they came from the fact that it gave the American market, maybe also over here, an extra ad break, so you could do the actual episode and then have another break and then come back, and the audience would come back knowing that there was something else to enjoy.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories of doing any of those kind of epilogues?
Not really. Mainly it was the two of them. So it was whatever situation they could put them in. It was the same with Diana. Although they tended to go with Diana, it was more using the cars and going on location, and those early ones. But the rest really was doing the tag that was on the set. So you didn't have to take the artist out of the studio.
And do you think Linda would have liked to have been involved in that fight? Was there sometimes a frustrating things of being damsel and
yeah, she did love a fight. I mean, when what was the episode where we had a fight with the optical glass frames that we smashed over each other's heads, and had a fight across the table. I was doubling for Carter, I think his name was, in the series. I'm not sure, but yeah, she just wanted to be in the. I got a great photo of her, just missing my chin, in a still that they took. But yeah, she was very keen to do as much as she, we would allow her to do, really, because she could get hurt, and you can't have that.
Yeah, yeah. I think as groundbreaking as these shows were in terms of having Honor Blackman, Dana Rigg, Linda doing their own stunts, being very much an equal to Steed. I think sometimes they sort of fell into the trap of that damsel in distress still that Steed had to rescue.
Yeah.
The brilliant All Down with Mirrors, which is basically Linda's episode, very, very good until Patrick has to come in to stop her being killed. So it's just like that, it would be nice perhaps to have the other way around. But I suppose there was those kind of attitudes. Did you find, not so much in Avengers because it was so sort of pioneering, but were other shows you worked on very traditional in terms of the role of women, and you felt that they weren't perhaps doing what they should be doing?
Absolutely. I think the early ones, the Barons and the Saints, it was always the male who was the savior. So the Avengers was different in that way, and all the women on the Avengers obviously wanted to do more, and they did lots of the physical fighting. Let me just switch that off. It's gone on to the next episode. Yeah, I mean, Linda was very keen, and we did a fight in the with all done with mirrors. I played a villain with Joe Dunn, and at the top of the lighthouse we have a fight. She did very well in that, and it was an earlier episode really, and she did very well. She shoots me, or I get shot and fall over a table, and she kicks Joe Dunn out, and he does a 360 stair fall. He goes 360 steps. He's supposed to go down. He kept cutting back to him going down the same flight of stairs, but yeah, it was a good fight. But she was very good. And when she had to fight, was it Bruno Ellington, the wrestler, in an episode? Yes, but you know, Sid was such a good, double to get away with. Sid doing most of the stuff that Linda would like to have done, but you couldn't take the chance. Sid was as hard as nails. It was worse fighting her than it was any of the guys, because when she did a body slam, you knew you were slammed. She was very good, but she could lay you down if she wanted to, but when you're fighting somebody, the guys were softer than she was. She was a good, competitive judo expert, so she knew exactly what she was doing. So yeah, we had some good fights and good fun, and she looked after me.
Oh, good. So I was wondering about, you mentioned falling downstairs. I imagine that's quite a deceptively difficult stunt, and that you could probably very easily get hurt. Is there a secret to doing those kind of falls?
The faster the better. Depends on the stairs. Excuse me. The worst stair fall I had to do was on Dixon and Dock Green, which was down an iron spiral staircase. Now, when you've got to go head first down to get a turn into it, to get a turn out of it. When you're doing a stair fall, depends, as I say, it's iron stairs, concrete stairs, or in a house, and you've got banisters on the side or whatever. The director, normally says, okay, you get shot at the top of the stairs and you fall down the stairs, which is hard. If you're 6 foot tall and you're standing on the top step, by the time you're falling, your head hits the bottom. That's 12 feet. You're going down. So what the trick is to say to the director, yeah, that's fine. I'll get shot and fall down, but I'll only get like 2 rolls out of it, because I'm halfway down the stairs, by the first fall. If I step back half a pace or a pace, I get shot and crumple on the top stair, and then I can tumble all the way down. So you get away with that first hit. It's the first hit that hurts. So if you're going to tuck into it and start to roll, and the quicker the faster you go, the better it is. It's when you have to do slow ones, you're hitting every time, whereas the momentum takes you. As long as you don't get caught up in the railings or whatever. Yeah, I've done iron staircases. They're difficult. Outside buildings, when you get the fire escape ones. I remember on Bergerac, I had to do quite a few stairs to get down. But yeah, it can be as easy as anything. I mean, a nice soft carpet, it's fine. 2 of you going down is a little bit more difficult. You have to make sure you're not going to hit each other as you're going down. But singly, it's normally not a problem. If you pad out. The worst thing is on any of the stairs is your ankles. So I've eventually found some ankle pads, because as you're going over, your ankles hit. If you're not actually doing a straight tumble, if you're going from side to side, your ankles get hit in the railings or on the stairs themselves.
I was, so of course, at the end of this series, the show was cancelled. Did this take everybody by surprise? Was it?
I think so. I think we were, all confident that it was a good series, and obviously hoping that it would go on. But unfortunately, it didn't. And then when they did the new Avengers, I got a phone call if I would go back on it as a coordinator and work on it. But I also got a call to go on A Bridge Too Far, and I thought, well, it's a big movie, and I'd like to be part of that. And so I went on to A Bridge Too Far, and turned down the new Avengers.
I
I
think you
don't
made the
know
right
what.
choice.
Yeah, but possibly. I didn't feel it was going to be, the greatest series. I just lost a bit of faith in it, I think. And I thought, a big wartime movie would be better for me at that time.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. I certainly agree with your thinking. I know because obviously Sid was the fighter ranger for the first series, but then the money disappeared and they got rid of her position, so there wasn't a fighter ranger on the second series at all,
Really?
which quite sort of dangerous, really thinking about it.
Mm.
I mean that's sort of role. Um, so I'm just wondering about, so do you have a favorite memory of Patrick McNee during this sort of series? Was he what was he like sort of in between takes? Was he sort of
He was funny, especially with Diana. He was a lot more relaxed somehow. Um, but even so, you on the set or you go on location, and you're sitting out in the sun in the poppy fields or wherever, and it's, yeah, totally relaxed, very nice man, completely, no side to him at all. Um, he he was he was what he portrayed, really. He was a gentleman, um, and I couldn't find fault with him, really. He was good to everybody, nice to everybody, um, um, and very respectful of his other actors. It was never, sort of, this is my show. This is my character. And I saw him once fall out with Johnny Huff, who was had just started. He'd done second unit, and now he was doing an episode, and Johnny said, "Well, can you do this, Patrick?" And Patrick said, "Well, my character wouldn't do that." And um, Johnny said, "Well, would you mind just doing it for?" And Patrick said no. So they had a bit of a contretemps with it, and uh, Johnny took him off the set, and they had a chat, and Patrick came back, and he did exactly what Johnny wanted him to do. But that was the only time I've ever seen him disagree with what he's been asked to do.
well, of course, by this point he was very protective of his character, so he kind of would
Yes, yeah,
was shorthand of
absolutely.
what he thought he should and
Mm.
shouldn't do. And John Huff did do some of the new Avengers, so of course there wasn't any kind of issue in
No,
terms of
no,
their relationship at all.
no. I think Patrick respected him for sticking to his guns and saying what he wanted. Um, so yeah, I think they got on very well after that.
And John Huff's still going, I believe. I don't think he's very well, sadly.
No, I've been trying to get in touch with him. So if anyone's got his number, let me know.
I've no idea. I did obviously go through Ray, a few years ago, and
Mm.
he didn't know, but I believe he's in a home somewhere.
Yeah, I'm
Unfortunately.
sure. I mean, I'd just love
Um,
to get in touch with him again.
if I find a thing, I'll certainly pass it on to
Okay,
you.
thank you.
So was there any other directors for the Avengers series that sort of stick out? Because of course you had some very good, like Charlie Crichton and very sort
Mm.
of film. This is what again why the Avengers holds up is it was basically some mini films made by proper filmmakers.
Yes, yeah.
Were there any sort of other directors that sort of spring to your mind?
There was the early days. There was a director called Saul. I can't think of his first name, but he was absolutely had a cravat on and always had his hand in his pocket, and he was like an ex-naval commander. He was very good, very direct. Yes, that's what we're doing, darling. Yes, that's it. Yes. But you get people like Bob Foose, who came in, and he was a bit of an odd character. They thought he loved angles. I mean, there was, Johnny Howe learned, I think, a lot from Bob Foose in doing different angles and colors and movements of cameras. Yeah, I like working with Bob. He was very good. Ernie Day, Bob Day, was a first assistant who then did a few episodes, I think. Crazy guy. But yeah, some lovely directors, some weird ones as well, Gordon Scott. No, what was his name?
Gordon Scott, I think, was the productions side of things.
Yeah, he was. No, he was a manager of the studios. I think the other one was he was a Scottish director. Gordon, I'm not sure.
Well, Gordon Scott was the executive in charge of production, so I suppose equivalent to Johnny Goodman's role on The Saint, I would have thought.
But yeah, we had some good directors, and I remember the Winged Avenger. We had two directors who came in for some reason, but the biggest problem was when they're upside down on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And you've got to shoot them upside down, looking down left to right. Obviously not on the ceiling, so now you've got to shoot them this way. Are they looking right to left or left to right? It became very complicated. And I remember quite a bit of discussion over how best to shoot it, which is a problem. I mean, you don't want them both look in the same direction at the same time. You've got to have them looking at each other. So if someone's looking down this way, you've got to have the people looking up that way, right to left, as left to right. So yeah, it was difficult, but the two directors worked it out in the end. Duffel, Peter Duffel, I think, was one of them. Yeah, so yeah, we've had some good directors. Don Jeffy, as I say, very funny, very to the point. I remember when on the episode of the Maltese Falcon thing, what was it called? Was it called the Maltese?
The Winged Avenger was the one with the
the Maltese Falcon one, where they were all the villains were getting to having a consortium to find the diamond, the pearl, the Maltese pearl. Anyway, where they had all the villains lined up. This is Don Chaffee directing on the set. We had one camera on all the villains, and there was Chinese, there was Americans, there was Germans, there was all sorts of characters that were after this pearl. And Big Bill Reed was playing the American. So he had a pinstripe suit on, a big fedora hat on, and he looked the American gangster. So Don Chappie's directing. He said, "Okay," he said, "I want you to react." He said, "Just imagine Steve is coming forward, and he's picking up the diamond, the pearl, and you all move forward, and you take your guns out,
Yeah.
and then you see it's not there, and you put it back. So he said, okay, turnover action. All the villains came slightly forward. He said, okay, take your guns out, but don't actually take them out. Go for them, and then relax when you see it. So turnover action. Big Bill Reed goes to his gun. He said, and he pulls out his gun, and he's holding it like this, but he hasn't got a gun, so he's just got his fingers. So he said, relax, and he put his fingers back, and the camera operator, Ginger Gemmels, I think it was, said, Don, did you see that Bill took out his fingers? And Bill was a heavy, big guy, stunt guy, and you didn't upset Bill. So he said, Bill took out his fingers. He said, yeah. He said, are you going to tell him or shall I? No one was going to upset Bill. So he went back to him and said, okay, no one take your guns out. Just keep your hands in your pockets. So quite funny. Don was a real character in himself. I used to see him, he went over to America and did quite a bit in America of the TV series. And I used to go over to his house, and we used to meet in the pubs in the British Lion. So yeah, he was a lovely guy, but I've worked on so many shows with him over the years. Good guy.
Lovely. It was Legacy of Death, that episode. Legacy of Death, that was. And that was Ronald Lacey was in that one. Do you remember Ronald Lacey at all?
Yeah. I worked with Ronald. He was a lovely guy. Did Quilp with him, and other TV series, but also Raiders of the Lost Ark. He was out in Tunisia with playing the villain. Yeah, he's a lovely guy.
Because I think by the time Raiders came along, he got a bit. The work had dried up, and he was thinking of leaving the business. And suddenly, this big role comes along, as it often does. And of course, he was in his element, wasn't on Raiders?
Yeah. He did very well. His daughter's a very good actress as well.
Oh yeah. Steve's pointed out that it was Peter Duffel and Gordon Fleming who did
Gordon Fleming, yes.
Yeah. A very ambitious thing to do on a TV budget and time to sort of do that kind of set. And you mentioned about not being showing blood, and of course the Winged Avenger was ripping people to pieces, but of course you only saw the clothes, and then everything else was fine. Did you ever see the Ray Fiennes, Uma Thurman film that they did of the Avengers?
No. It was the only film. I've never had an agent in all my career to go after films for me. It's always people come to me to work. But it's the only film that I've ever sent my CV in.
Oh, right.
Because I thought it was going to be the Avengers, and lucky enough I didn't get it, because I didn't like what they did with it, and I didn't like the bits I saw of it. I don't think I saw it all the way through.
I think it had a lot of great people on it. Vic Armstrong was, etc. And I've done a couple of events with. I did one with the writer of the film, and it's one of those sad cases, a bit like Superman 4, where it was kind of butchered and chunks taken out, re-edited, taken away from the director. So the original intention, I think, was as good as you could possibly have, but sometimes a bit like that. Going back to the Flash, things happen behind the scenes, politics, etc.
Yeah.
And it changes that. So I think the Avengers film, although it would never have been of this ilk of the original, it nevertheless went through an awful lot of problems that really never needed to happen, sadly. I mean, do you think that the Avengers could come back, or would you like to see it before?
I'd love to see it back in the bizarre form that it is. All the time that we did the Avengers, you were never really in the real world. We'd go on location and like the hour that never was or the day that never was. The whole town was, we wandered around the town with Peter Buckworth, and it was me with him, all on the locations. But there wasn't a person around, and it only survives, I think, in a world of its own. If you try to make it too up to date or too much of a reality, I think would spoil the bizarreness. I think you would have to be very careful of how you set it, and what you would, the world that they would live in, as opposed to making them, run through Waterloo Station, and you'd have to be very careful of how you showed it. But yeah, I'd love to see it back. I think the characters were good, and for their time, ahead of their time, really. But it worked because it was in a world of its own.
I think that's exactly the case, because you don't really see many landmarks. It's generic London. It's the Richard Curtis London that Americans fall in love with, and Britain's not actually like that, nor was it in the Avengers. It's sort of an idealized version of England, and so there's that time. I think there's a time capsule factors why modern younger audiences might like the Avengers, but of course it was never that way in the first place. It's sort of this kind of sort of fantasy Disneyland sort of version of reality, I think.
I mean, to use in the Winged Avenger, using WoW, Crash, and POW, and with the boards with the all written on them. I mean, yeah, it just shows you that's as far as you'd want to go, really, in terms of Batman type storylines and situations. But I think it would work if you could create a time, a world where they could exist. But it would be very difficult to, the audience. You'd have to. The Avengers audience and fans are fanatics. I mean, we all love them, and I could watch them again and again and again. But would that, I mean, you get repeats all the time, which is good. But it's to a narrow audience, and I don't know whether you put it on at 8 o'clock at night on a modern day. I don't know whether that would bring in the audience. I think it's maybe too not slow, but you need to be part of it to enjoy it. Whereas everything is so fast these days, and the stories go backwards, forwards, cutting, and the camera's moving everywhere. This is more sedate and relaxed, enjoyable Sunday afternoon, evening entertainment for me. It was.
Oh yeah, it's a family show, isn't it? Everybody can watch it, and if you were to remake the Avengers, you've also got a unique problem in the respect that the Avengers was always mutating. The new Avengers is different to the Tara King, Diana is different, Linda, Ian Hendry. So if you were to try and remake the Avengers, the first thing you've got to say is, well, what is the Avengers? And it's not any one particular thing, which is kind of interesting. So looking back at the episodes, do you prefer the Linda era or when you were with Diana in terms of the stories? Do you think one is better, or they just kind of as good in different ways?
No, I think I love both of them. I mean, I love working with Diana and some of the stories, because mainly I was doubling at that time in terms of a stand-in in the early Avengers, and then I went on to do the stunts So in the early days, I'll be on the set, standing in for Patrick, but I'll be there all day and every day. Whereas once I started doing stunts, I would come in for the stunts or go on location for the stunts. So I wasn't totally on the set all the time, which I did enjoy in the Diana series early series.
Yeah. I've got a question from Steve. He says he saw you did work on Last Night in Soho. Were you able to meet Diana Rigg on that one, and do you reminisce?
No, I didn't get to see her because we did a night shoot around London. But I did. I was in LA. It must be 3-4 years ago now. I've been a bit more. I went over to see Ray, and I was in New York for a while, and I went to see her in My Fair Lady at the Lincoln
Yes,
Theatre.
Pygmalion, wasn't it? I think it was.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw it the UK version that actually with
Oh,
her.
did you?
And I saw her in Honor as well, which she did a few years ago, and yeah, the acting chops on her,
Yeah.
amazing.
So I was lucky.
Range
Yeah, I was lucky. I was in town while she was playing New York, and I went backstage and saw her, and we spent about 20 minutes going through talking about the old Avengers and what it was like, who was doing what now, and what happened to so and so. Yeah, so it was good fun to see her and reminisce. And it was the Lincoln Theatre in New York. But that was the last time I saw her.
Yeah, but lovely to for these people to come back into each other's lives and
yes, yeah,
it's got kind of recollections and shared experiences. So just to wrap up now, the episode we're watching was written by Jeremy Burnham, who did appear as an actor in some episodes as well. Did you meet Jeremy at all?
Don't know, don't think so. Who did he play in the episode?
I'll just quickly look that up. He's quite well known for being in Diana Rigg's first episode, The Town of No Return. She plays the village vicar who turns out to be a baddie along with the rest of the village. So a lot of people know him from that.
No.
He did do a Linda episode, the Forget Me Not. So the transfer from Diana to Linda. He was he played a character called Simon in that one. Also in The Fear Merchant as Gordon White. But again, one of those very good character actors that was sort of popular.
Yeah, I can't place his face.
And I was just sort of thinking, so this episode, of course, was one that you wanted to speak about. The boxing scene aside, do you think it's do you have any favorite moments in the episode? Do you think it is one of the strongest episodes of the show?
What, the one we just watched?
Oh yeah.
No, I don't think. From my point of view, it's that, I had a couple of scenes in it where I was doubling for Patrick, which is always good. But if I do a talk, I sometimes show the boxing sequence just to show people the editing of how it cuts from me to Patrick to me. So it's a good episode to explain to people that don't really understand editing and cutting. That's a good thing to show them. But any of the others, I mean, I love, so many of them, and just to be part of them, I've always enjoyed working on them. Obviously, the Magnificent. What was the
Superlative 7, I think it is.
Yes, that was one. I took over from Rocky on that one and did the fight in there. So that's always an episode I like watching. It's because the characters, there was 7 characters, and who was the lovely lady in it?
Let's have a quick look a second.
Yeah,
Um,
she lives in France now.
I was just thinking about the boxing scene because, of course, there's quite an impressive amount of gymnastics going on. Was that something you were always very good at at school?
Yes, yeah. I mean, yeah, I used to leap around a lot, and I was always trying to put things into, if I was working with John Sullivan as a coordinator, he would say, you fall over there. Say, well, can I have a box here and I can fly over there and I can do this and do that. So yeah, and I remember doing one episode, doubling for speed, jumping out the way of a car, and I think Peter Brace was driving the car at me down the Mews, and I had to leave it at the last minute. And I wanted to leave it at the last minute, but every time he got to me, he'd swerve off. He'd say, "You can't leave it that late. You've got to move before I get to you." But I would always leave it as late as possible, and I'd fall as high as possible. So yeah, I just was very athletic, and I could love springing around and falling around. So.
It was Charlotte Rampling that was in the
Yes, lovely Charlotte. She was beautiful, lovely lady.
and she's just finished Dune Part 2, so she's still very active and done very, very well for herself. You mentioned at the beginning that you were recognized on The Flash and for your work on Superman. Having had a very prestigious career, where does the Avengers come in the respect of fan attention? Is it the Avengers something that you get an awful lot of attention for?
I do from the Avengers groups. Now we're doing another Avengers every year. I do a couple of events for the Avengers, and there's one coming up in September, which we did last year in Moore Park Hotel. But it's yes, they'd love for us, like either Sid or myself or someone to take them around the locations and say, "Oh, what you did here and how did you do that?" And I've done that a few times, but they're very keen. They're a great group, and I love their events. They're such a tight-knit group, maybe 40, 50 people, I don't know. But I do talks, and they ask me questions like you about the different episodes. But yeah, I get a lot of attention from the Avengers fan club.
Yeah, I think, and rightly so. It's one of those, probably one of the best cult TV shows that we have. That's come out of Britain, and it's on every day, isn't it? On one of the channels. It's always there. So just before we go, do you have any final thoughts about the Avengers this episode, or anything that we've discussed tonight?
No, I think it was a good episode for me, because obviously the fight and once you get into a good fight, you enjoy it, and that was a fun fight to do. Not too violent, and it was a good to do. I think the episode was okay. It showed Linda really being up against the system, and Steve even doubting her, which was unusual. So yeah, I think it was a good episode. I enjoyed it, as I enjoy most of them, I'm afraid. I'm a fan myself, so.
Well, that's wonderful. Do you have a last minute comment? You mentioned the Superlative 7. Of course, that features a young Donald Sutherland. Did you encounter Donald Sutherland?
Yeah. He still owes me £2.45, I think. I was doing a walk. I belong to the Mount View Theatre Club, and we were doing a tour of America, and I needed money to pay for it to go. I was still at drama school, and Patrick and Roger and Donald all sponsored me for a walk, 50-mile walk. Yeah, and Patrick played and Roger played, but by that time Donald had left, so I never got my money. And when I worked with with the Kiefer on the Three Musketeers. I did say, your old man still owes me money. Of course, I then worked with him on the Dirty Dozen, but I never did. I never got the money off him.
And of course, that a reasonable amount of money probably back then as well, a couple of pounds, yeah. What's the bridge? What you mentioned, Bridge Too Far, but was that a good film to work on?
Oh, fabulous! Yeah, I mean, to be part of telling that story, which was as big as you get, with the cast that were I mean, how they got them all together, I don't know. There was Joseph Levine, the producer. It was a big story, and it was maybe too big a story to tell. It was a long film, but every country put in what they had to make the film. We had Dutch, we had Germans, we had English and Americans. So as stunt people, we were playing all of them, and each country, Levine went round to each country to get money to make the movie. So he did a great job to get that stellar cast together to tell such a enormous story. Tragic, but it happened. So.
Oh yeah, an important story to tell. Was Richard Attenborough good to work with?
Yeah, it's lovely. Poppets. He was always very nice. Called everyone Poppets. Oh, okay, Poppets. Yes. So yeah, he was lovely. And I saw him after that, and I was in LA trying to get a script off the ground, and I met him at the Beverly Hills Hotel. I was waiting for my car, and he was coming in. He said, "Oh, Poppet, what you doing here?" I said, "Hustling, the same as you, sir." And he laughed. Yeah, he was obviously trying to get money for a project, but he was lovely. He treated everybody with respect, and all the extras. He was very kind to everybody. I remember Elliot Gould coming when he arrived, and we were all having short haircuts to start the movie. Elliot arrived with his curly hair, which looked like an afro. So Attenborough said, "Oh, Poppy, you've got to have your hair cut." And he went, "And why?" He said, "Well, this is wartime. You've got to have it short and whatever." He said, "No, I'm not going to have it cut completely. I'll have it half cut." So he said, okay. And we were in the trailers. We had hairdressers in the trailers. And he went into the trailer, came out, and he had it half cut, one side, on this side. He was very funny, Elliot. I worked with him a few times on Lady Vanishes and Escape to Athena. But a very funny guy, a good actor, a nice man.
Oh, lovely. Well, that's probably a lovely place to end it, Paul. Sorry about this annoying cold that I've got, but as soon as it clears, I'm going to try the champagne fountain from the episode and see if it works. It's probably be a complete disaster, but well, it'd been lovely to chat to you as always, Paul. Thanks very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you soon, Paul.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye, folks.
Yeah. Bye, Paul.